Hello and welcome to yet another episode of From the Marginlands. This is episode 3, and I'm Arti Kumar-Rao.
Hi, and I'm Prem Panicker. Welcome to our viewers. Those of you who follow Arti on social media likely know that she suffered a bereavement recently. On the 30th of March, she lost her mother. Losing a loved one is hard enough, but when that loss is sudden, when it comes out of the blue with no foreshadowing, the shock makes it much worse to cope with. Condolences, Arti, from all of us. And uh,
Thank you.
I want to, so when I heard the news and in the days subsequently, I kept thinking about the prologue of Marginlands, where you had talked about your early years, your upbringing. You were living in Tata Colony in Mumbai. And you wrote a lot about your dad and how he took you on nature walks, you and your sister Supriya on nature walks, and how that upbringing uh, kind of was the reason for how he shaped your immersion in and your love for the environment. Uh, Conversations we've had, you've also spoken of your mom's influence in shaping who you are, though you haven't written too much about it. Uh, I remember you particularly mentioning that she was responsible for your inclination towards storytelling. Could you talk a bit more about that? Could you tell us about her influence in your life?
Yes, yes, definitely. In fact, um, I've told them both, of course, thank God. And I've also mentioned to anybody who would listen how my mom was insistent on good communication growing up.
Hmm.
So whether it was writing, um, we had a huge stress in our childhood on both good handwriting, which is the physical part of it, but also in good expression while writing. So I used to love to write essays, and that's again thanks to to my mom, because she was um, she was very insistent that that part of our education be front and center, along with STEM, which was also a huge inclination in our family. But Mama was very instrumental in both writing as well as speaking. So she would be insistent that I take part in elocutions, debates. She was insistent on good pronunciation, enunciation, intonation, and all of that. And she was an excellent storyteller with a voice that that kind of threw. She was really good with. She had a very clear voice that kind of reached far, and many people remember that about her. Um, and so that was, so there were these two parts to every day in my childhood, which would be communication, and then the content of the communication, which would be the science part of it. And our whole family is very, very scientifically inclined, so there was a lot of that. But mom and I also shared our love for geography. That was her favorite topic. And again, so that was something that we just really bonded upon in later years. Earlier years, my mom was also a disciplinarian and a perfectionist, so it was kind of hard for me as the older child. And we spoke about that very recently, and she kind of quipped saying, "Look, it didn't turn out too badly, did it?" So, well, yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't, and I admitted that to her, and I'm just so glad that I think since 2019 somehow I had regularly been telling her how much I appreciated some of these things that she inculcated in us, and we had become allies of a sort in my storytelling journey, and also in all the places that I went to. She was the first one to ask me what I saw, what I did, and we had this stream of consciousness conversation going on thanks to WhatsApp, where she would show me things. She was one of those people that loved everything from the smallest, tiniest moth that she would observe to the biggest tree, or a hoarding that caught her eye. She was She was observation incarnate. We used to call her, Eagle Eye, because nothing escaped her. She was always on alert and very expressive. So whatever she saw, she shared. So in fact, she kind of embodied, I would say, what Mary Oliver has said: pay attention, uh, and be observant, pay attention, and tell about it. Right? That's literally what Mama was, and I think that was something that rubbed off on me. And we used to just continuously share things that we found and saw and discovered. And even the tiniest thing, she loved gardening. And she'd send me these like a the other day she sent me a crab spider, saying, "So a strange looking creature, what is this?" And then I would find out and tell her, "I once misidentified something," and she has double checked with somebody working in BNHS, and she sent me the right thing. And so these things just went keep going back and forth. So she was very instrumental in both communication, but also in teaching me how to observe, and keep and being alive to every moment. And I think in the last few days, Prem, we spoke about this offline. The realization that dawned on me, that she lived every moment of her life so fully. And of course, she went on her feet. She didn't, she was not, bedridden or anything. She went on her feet. And until the end, even the morning of the 30th, which was Ugadi, the New Year, I had called her, and unfortunately, she was refusing to go to the doc. She was suffering from what we thought was just high fever and an infection of some sort. But it turned badly. Within the day, she was gone, which was really strange. But, on her feet, again, still um, observing, telling things. Even the last picture on her phone is that of a little uh, flower that has bloomed in her balcony in Bombay, that she has taken pictures of from different angles. And she's actually caught herself looking at the flower from one angle. It's just really cute. But that's who Mama was. And I think in so many ways that is such a large part of who I am. And so storytelling, I think, in our family is a big one. And Mama was a huge, and before her mother. So it was one of those things, there the women of the family are the big talkers and the storytellers in our family. So yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
was.
I noticed the next generation has also imbibed that. Sanjana, for instance, your daughter,
And
loves.
Samira, my sister's daughter, who also has a wonderful speaking voice, loves theater, loves stories, storytelling, very expressive, as is Sanjana. So, yeah, I think that is something of a legacy of
Mhm.
our ancestors.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Uh, Thank you for sharing that moment in her memory.
Pleasure. I think I'm going to, and we were talking about this too. I'm going to write a lot more about just this process
Hmm.
of losing someone who is probably the person I've known the longest in my life, right? Before I was born.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's interesting. I'm happy that she had 78 wonderful years, and of course, I would have liked more years. But then I would never want her to compromise on her health and her wishes, which she wanted to always, you know, never be um,
yeah,
kind of off her feet. So good. I think it all worked out. And while I am sad, extremely sad, it's not. Uh, it's something that I want to celebrate. Her life.
yeah. Her life, her legacy.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about this. I mean, one of the reasons why you're able to at least regain a measure of your equanimity is you have so much to celebrate and very little to regret. Everything that you had to tell your mom, everything that your mom had to share with you, you guys shared. And I remember telling you about, it's much harder when, for instance, you know about this. Dad and I have been estranged, and I suddenly heard of his passing again, just like your mom. His passing came out of the blue. And even today, loss is going to be with us, with you, with me, with everybody who's lost a loved one. in my case, that loss is freighted with so much of regret. The regret that I never told my dad how much I owed him. He taught me to read. He taught me to write. I never told him that. I never told him thank you. There's the regret of words not exchanged, affection not articulated, the regret of a hug not given and received. All of that. Mercifully, you don't have that. It's quite the reverse. So thank God for that.
Seriously. And I think the turning point came 2 days ago when we were looking for Mama's, I think it was Aadhaar card or something
Hmm.
like that. Okay. And I had to rifle through her purse and I came upon this note I had written to her in 2020
Hmm.
where I have thanked her for teaching me communications, said sorry for being a difficult child. I was
You were.
very difficult.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Both of us share a very volatile temper. And so, but it was the kind of temper that kind of spikes and then goes down. And 2 seconds
Yeah, I know.
later, it's completely okay. Sasha and I are just like that. Um, so I've said my sorries. I've said my thank yous. I've told her how much I love her, which transcends any of these little blips. And she carried that note from 2020 January around in her purse. So
Wow.
for me, I think somehow, somewhere she knew, and we had reiterated it as recently as I think it was March 4th. Thank God for WhatsApp, really. And we've kind of told each other how important it is. And her friends have been writing into me saying how proud she was of everything and how she used to share all of our accomplishments, Supriya's and mine. And so I think life well lived, and it deserves to be celebrated. And thank you, Prem, for coming yesterday for the prayer meet.
Yes.
I think that was a big one. And I think I saw over there too when people spoke in different ways she touched everybody. And it's just, I'm very happy that she had that.
Yeah. Let's just pause a moment in our memory before we move on. So, given all the givens, we're not doing the usual roundup of headlines and the usual studio guest that uh, we've been trying to do. We'll get back to regular programming next week. Arti, this week I mean, you haven't had much mind space to look into headlines and what's happening in the world. Uh, I have been looking at things, but the one thing that I wanted to bring up and I wanted your thoughts on, there was this report in the Indian Express that the second phase of the coastal project is going to cause the cutting down of about 9,000 mangrove trees. That a total of 60,000 trees could be affected. Now, one of the first things that I thought when I read that report is, if they estimate 9,000 is going to be much more. It always is. Uh, but even so, even 9,000 mangroves being cut in the second phase, if I remember correctly, the first phase caused the loss of about 3,500 odd mangroves. And now you have another 9,000 going if you take the official estimates. I wanted to know, 30,000 feet up view, what does this mean for Mumbai's coastline? What does it mean for the environment? It's a place that you know very well. And then I have some other questions for you.
I know the place very well. Um, and I think a city like Bombay, which is slated to lose 10% to rising sea levels in the next 10, 15 years,
Mhm.
is 10 years, actually, 5, 10 years. Um, I think is just this kind of stuff happening is very short sighted and really silly. Um, Also, mangroves are, let me see if I can share this. They are, and they're well known to be, it's not new. This is,
Mhm.
I'm sure everybody knows that they are a buffer
Right.
against, storm surges.
Mhm.
Here in this video, which was shared by Colin Myers, who is a meteorologist in the US. I think he's in the US. I forget now. But anyway, he shared this, and you can see how the mangroves attenuate the waves coming in, and the strength of the waves, the amplitude of the waves reaching the part that's closer to us is so much lesser than the ones that are hitting the mangroves. And that is primarily because of the way the roots are, and it forms a barrier. It kind of stems the absorbs the energy of the waves, and so therefore attenuates it, and so on. I think more work also needs to be done. I don't know how much work has been done as to how much it does this, how much it attenuates and helps with storm surges, but it's well known that these are the barriers that even helped. For example, the Sundarbans worked as a barrier that helped against cyclone Aila, um,
Right.
Sidr, and more recently Amphan, and so on. And it's very important to understand that if those mangroves weren't there, for example, Khulna, Dhaka, even Kolkata are next in line for these kinds of inundations that's in the Bengal coast. But also something that I had read a while ago about when the tsunami struck the east coast of India, uh, the villages that were behind mangroves were far less affected than the villages that were not and that were exposed. This is on the Tamil Nadu coast.
Correct.
And again, I think we can and we should maybe do a deep dive into this whole. Loss of mangroves across India. It's not just in Bombay. Mangroves are being lost all across our coastline. And we probably will do a deep dive going forward. But not just the fact that mangroves are um, our first line of defense against sea level rise and storm surges, but also that these places are at the intersection of sweet water, which comes in from by, brought in by rivers, and the salt water of the seas, and that estuarine mangrove area is very biodiverse and highly, highly important for fish as nurseries, crustaceans, and all manner of little creatures. And by cutting these mangroves, I think what's even, I mean, cutting the mangroves itself instead of um, conserving them at this
Mhm.
time is a silly thing. But then, Prem, you saw this, right? This is
Oh,
in
yeah.
the Times of India,
Correct.
right? Where, hang on, let me just bring up there we go. Yes. Where you have plantations in Bayandar and Tadoba,
Cordoba. Hmm.
Tadoba to offset coastal road extension impact.
Yeah.
Tadoba is in the center of the country.
Correct.
You are destroying mangroves in Mumbai, and compensatory afforestation is happening thousands of kilometers or whatever, 1,000 kilometers away in the center of the city of the country.
Yeah.
This goes back, I think it was the first episode or the second episode where I suggested an essay
Mm.
for people to read by Barry Lopez called
Correct.
American Geographies, which talked about the importance of local geographies and understanding local geographies. Very clearly says that one river cannot be exchanged for another. Each river is so different in its biota, in the way it affects the landscape around it, and so on.
Hmm.
Similarly, one forest cannot replace another forest, and a plantation is not a forest,
Yes.
and a mangrove is a forest. So, on so many levels, this is misinformed and misguided. And eventually, when when we have data to show how rising sea levels are going to affect Mumbai, and Mumbai is our commercial capital, I have to say that we are probably shooting ourselves in the foot by doing something so willful.
Correct. Uh, I was thinking, I mean, you brought up 2 points. One was about how mangroves live in the intersection of salt and sweet. you saw this effects. You saw the effects of this. You also brought up Tamil Nadu and the villages that were protected by mangroves versus the rest. The other thing about the Tamil Nadu coastline that I experienced at first hand is there also a lot of mangroves were cut in order to facilitate development near the coastline. You had these, apartment complexes proudly claiming to be sea view and all of that. And what happened was that absent the mangroves, the water, the potable water that they had started getting heavily briny and undrinkable. Sometime back, I think it was almost 8 to 10 years ago, the Tamil Nadu government then announced a 40,000 crore project to regrow mangroves. And I don't understand the thinking that mangroves don't, it's not like planting a cash crop, right? I mean, you say, okay, I'm going to spend this much money, I'm going to regrow mangroves, and it comes up overnight. It doesn't. There's an ecosystem formed over time, as I understand it. It's uh, you've actually delved a lot deeper into that when on your various trips to the Sundarbans, where you saw, the decline of the mangroves, both natural decline but also man-made decline, uh, the pollution, all of
Mm.
that. So when I saw this headline, that is what I was thinking of, your trip to Sundarbans, because at that time we were working together. This was what, Peeply.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and for some reason, my memory just kept going back to that one short video that you had uh, sent from there. This was a boat cutting through that oil spill. Uh, what? I, Look, I mean, I don't get it. Why is this so difficult for policymakers to understand? Do you think that these are not just trees that you can cut or transplant or
It's I think that is a kind of thinking where to destroy doesn't take any um, second thought at all.
Mhm.
And because they think, okay, we can transplant, regrow at some point. But nobody seems to, well, not nobody, but most of these people don't seem to take into consideration that maybe we should not destroy because it's really much harder to restore and not just regrow. Regrow, restore, completely different things. Restoring an ecosystem takes hard work. And you're right in the sense that just planting mangroves willy nilly, new mangroves, I guess, I don't know what
Mhm.
it is, but versus getting rid of a thriving mangrove forest. And this is not just with mangroves, right? Any thriving forest, getting rid of it and then planting new plantations somewhere else uh, is just not the same thing. And unfortunately, I think it's these systems that maybe the West has put into place, the whole carbon credits and all
Mhm.
of that. This is a much bigger conversation, really. And it's a very important conversation, one we need to have, and one that ties into uh, different points in this whole zero emissions versus um, the race for zero emissions, basically, and
Mhm.
what all we're doing to get to zero emissions, which are sometimes quite counterproductive. And so, yes, in fact, if you just take the Sundarbans mangroves, and people who have been following me over the years will know that I've spoken about this. We've done it in Peeply. I've written it in the book as well. Is um, look at the ways in which we are destroying those
Yeah.
mangroves. First of all, by upstream dams, which are holding back both silt and fresh water, both of which are required to build the delta
Mhm.
on which these mangroves thrive. So you're depriving the mangroves of silt. So there is erosion as it is that's happening, natural erosion, and there's no way to build it back. And then sweet water. If you're going to hold back sweet water and divert sweet water upstream, then you're also going to change the salinity of this delta, which very is a very delicate balance of sweet and brine. And then that's going to change a whole lot of both biodiversity as well as saltwater ingress when it comes
Mm.
to these storm surges, which then again affects the soil inland. Affects the groundwater, like you talked about. It affects everything inland. And then if you have saltwater inland, there are people who can't live there. And then that fuels migration. And then that whole cycle, it's just inevitable at this point, given how we're going. This, I think, Prem, let's make a note of this and let's come back to this whole uh, compensatory afforestation and
Yes.
zero emissions, carbon credits, buying credits by continuing to do something, and then kind of making so the right hand burns while the left hand distributes burn all kind of scenario, and right hand burns in place A, and left hand
Mm.
distributes burn all in place B.
The-
So the whole thing is just completely wacko. I don't know the answer to your question as to why people don't realize it. I don't know whether it's willful ignorance or it is genuine ignorance, because of course there is quick money to be had in whatever they're doing immediately and now, but there's going to be losses in the long term. Maybe these people won't be in power to have to face that. And the people on the ground are the ones that will bear the brunt, which is always the way the things are. Even, like we went to Faraka and we saw what,
yeah.
the short term gains, which weren't even short term gains at that time, and now all those things. So it's like a mindset. And I think we need to kind of pay more attention to that. And I hope our listeners will be interested when we talk um, about what havoc zero emissions and that mindset of running after zero emissions is playing.
Yeah, like you said, that's a conversation we need to have. We need to bring in experts because it is important. It seems to be a binary conversation these days, and the actual science is far more nuanced than can be summed up in a bumper sticker. Net zero by X kind of thing. And the thing is, I mean, to your point about the immediate gains versus the long-term losses, I was thinking of, remember when we went on that coastline recce and we were in Tamil Nadu, and Venice, the guy who was leading the protests against that port, he was talking so eloquently about official ignorance or apathy. And I remember one of the things that he said that just came back to my mind. I asked him pretty much the same question. I said, "Why is this so difficult to understand?" He was talking about if you build a port over there, you're going to have erosion following almost immediately, and it's going to affect the entire Kanyakumari coastline. And he said, "See, if you do something, you earn money today. The consequences won't be felt. Maybe it will be felt about 10 years later and from then on. But by then, these guys are not there. They've taken their
Exactly.
money and gone."
Exactly.
So he said, why should they care? It's not that they don't know. It is that it's not it's not their criteria. And the irony is, I mean, it's not an India problem, right? I mean, we keep talking
No.
about how this thing because another story that I was reading was this survey that was done by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, and their study was that half of the world's mangrove ecosystems are at risk of collapse.
Mm,
Half,
mm,
50%. That's which basically means, I mean, coastlines. As it is, you're talking of rising sea levels and therefore the threat to the low-lying areas. On top of that, you're literally decimating the only defense you have against that. And I don't know how this computes in policymakers' minds and in official minds. But yeah, this is something, like you said, that we need a much longer conversation on.
yeah, I think the whole thing, the whole zero emissions and the carbon, this compensating, oh, we can destroy forests here to
Mhm.
plant plantations somewhere else. Even the difference between a plantation and a forest,
Yes.
we know it. A lot of people that maybe a lot of people that are listening to us know it. But then if I were to walk out today into, say, even my community and ask people, uh, what they would think about, say, a Miyawaki forest versus a,
Mm.
a, a true old growth forest. I don't imagine a lot of people would even know the difference, or they might think a Miyawaki forest is as good, or even a plantation is as good because it's green, right? Whether all greens are the same. and also not just green, right? It's a complex ecosystem. A
Yes.
mangrove is a complex ecosystem. A forest is a river is. A river is not a pipe. Sorry,
Yeah.
a river is not a pipe, and people tend to think even this whole river linking thing, right? It's the same mindset.
Within bit. Yeah.
Something in one place can work as that in another place, which is completely contrary to ecological studies or the thinking, anything that has any sense behind it. Uh, we have to, I think it goes back to the loss of connect with
Mm.
landscapes and how landscapes behave. We are in our cities so, I would say, cocooned in so many ways that we don't understand these connections. And the people who are making these decisions are sitting in these cities, which are, you're inside your AC room and you do not understand how one river is. It's a shame. It's really a shame. But I think if more of us talk about it and more of us try and tease it apart, either with plain spoken English and not jargon, scientific jargon, and it's not something that sits in some paper somewhere or is discussed in some webinar with three other scientists of the same ilk, and
Pendulum.
where
Yes.
another 10 scientists only are listening to to it. If it comes out a little bit more and there's more understanding about what how these things connect up and how these things work, and why maybe it's not a great idea to destroy and then pretend that you are recreating something somewhere else. Uh, it maybe over time, slowly, things will change. I really hope that it will. I know that in our own community, for example, now so many more people are talking about shallow aquifers, about
Mm.
recharging, about groundwater depletion, which 6 years ago when I went rogue and built the first well here was not common. This was not a topic that was discussed in our community at all. So I think it's like a snowball, a slow groundswell of stuff, and I think let's keep discussing this, and let's see, maybe uh, we can even have town halls with people,
Yeah.
um, going forward, where more people can call in. Maybe we can even do a live session. Prem, you and I have been talking about taking from the Marginlands to Insta Live so that people can interact with us. Maybe that's something that we can. And I'm sorry, I disappeared for the last 2 weeks. After talking all this and all these great ideas, just kind of languished. But let's pick that up again, and let's see how uh, we can learn by bringing in people who are really in the know and who are mines of information, people whose shoulders we are standing on right now. So
And before we close this segment out, one of the things that I was thinking of, in fact, I left a note to myself while you were talking, was that later in the year we have that road trip coming up. Um, while the focus is something else entirely, we are passing through some of these areas. We are passing through Mumbai. We are passing through West Bengal, the Sundarbans. We will be passing through Tamil Nadu. Maybe also for this podcast, for the viewers, we also need to document some of this stuff with visuals and the experiences of the people living there, and bring that back to this program so that people understand that this is not just theory, uh, that there is actual real world consequences to a lot of what we're talking
yeah,
about here.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think we can even do a couple of road trip episodes where
Yes.
we're doing this recording from the road trip. It won't be maybe the audio won't be as clean, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. um, so with that, um, today I don't want to keep you for too long, but I think we have this regular segment that we close with. What are we reading? you know uh, Thanks to you, I just recently got hold of my copy of the State of India's Environment Study, 2025 version. It's the Down to Earth Annual. And given all that we've been speaking about, Arti, Uh, I just got it a couple of days back, and then, as you know, yesterday wasn't exactly reading time, and today is I'm preparing for my trip, which starts tomorrow. Uh, I've just been flipping through it, and it's scary. It's seriously scary. We just spent a good 20-25 minutes talking about a small, correct, uh, and the impact on of something that is happening, and the impact on a small ecology. This looks at the country as a whole, and just skimming through it, it's like, God, I mean, we are in such trouble.
Mhm.
I think you got the book earlier. Have you managed to read it?
Mm. I was reading it until March 30th.
Right.
In fact, it's funny. March 30th, I have left the book exactly where I was reading. When I went to play tennis, which is when I got, unfortunately, that terrible phone call with those 5 words. But the book was still there this morning when I picked it up
Hmm.
because I knew we were going to talk about this. But yes, I was going through it. And to me, all parts were really scary. But the part that I think is going to really, really affect India and a large part of the population of India, except for the very few that have access to an air conditioner, is the part on heat. God, I am. I was. I. I have every second line is highlighted. It's um, it's quite ridiculous, and I think it's something that we really need to pay attention to. And Prem, we can talk about this also. I did reach out to Sunita Narayan, who said later in the year she will have time to come on the show. We could talk to her as well, and maybe to talk to some of the authors of some of these chapters, because they have done much of the legwork and seen things firsthand as well. Because that one factor, heat, is going to affect so many things: biodiversity, water, health, mental health, economics, our economy. If you're not able to work in 50 degrees Celsius, what's going to happen? If even indoor working, like, even foundries, everything, right? The heat is not just for people who are out in the sun. The heat is going to affect everyone. Um, I think that one is a big one for me, and I think that chapter, I think it's 11, chapter 11 in the book. But yeah, that part
I remember
was the
when you,
scariest.
yeah, I remember when you told me to pick up this book. You sent me the link actually to the website. Uh, And I remember you saying that you should go through it because pretty much every page, every chapter is an episode or two of this podcast, because there is so much to dive deep into. And I'm beginning to see what you mean. But yeah, it's there's so much there that needs attention. So
Mm,
going forward, yeah, that's one of the things we do, that we bring in people who are specialized and who have studied these discrete subjects. There's heat, there's water, there's pretty much everything. It spans the spectrum. Obviously, it's the environmental report, not just the heat report. Um, this week we were planning to bring in a guest, but we will postpone that to our next episode. Meanwhile, this is where we end for this week. Um, Guests will understand why it's a somewhat truncated episode with not as much depth and detail as we like to provide. If you like what we're doing, below is the subscription link, and there's also the bell icon for you to be reminded of upcoming episodes. Meanwhile, from Aarti and I, for the fortnight, take care. See you all.
thank you, guys. Thanks for understanding.